Let's watch the War Within launch the good and the bad from Preach.
On the one hand, we've got people saying we're shilling for Blizzard and I'm overly enthusiastic. And on the other hand, including in my own team, we've got people who are not particularly happy with the War Within. So today, as the honeymoon draws to a close, the raids are here, endgame is upon us, and the race is about to begin.
Bro, I love this intro. Like, dude, here's the thing. As a streamer, in the same day, I always get Czar, you're a Blizzard shill, and Czar, stop hating on War Within. In the same day. And that's when you know you're right in the middle and it's perfect. We're on track, baby. Hype! All right, let's watch it.
And it's time to assess the beginnings, the launch of this World Soul saga. You heard it right. One of my team has already quit the War Within. Yet, regardless of your opinion, the objective reviews are in is that World of Warcraft The War Within is doing very well with a 90% on Metacritic, 80 with the critics, all that kind of stuff is going on.
Wait, I kind of want to read one of these. Great comeback, breath of fresh air, okay. The War Within continues the design path that was started in DF with unfortunately adding things that are a bit hit and miss. Narrative feels smaller and therefore more focused. Yeah, I agree with that. If you're expecting a stunning return to form that will restore WoW to its heights, you're going to be disappointed. This is a fair review. Yeah, this is a fair review. It's not returning WoW to its heights. It's going in a new direction. It's not going backwards. That's for damn sure. The War Within is unambitious continuation of the Dragonflight formula. Yeah, only with a more cohesive story, more solo options. This is actually Urbish's review. This is spot on. It's a continuation of Dragonflight, but there's better story and more solo options. Like, this is spot on. The War Within is not a revolution, but a carefully planned evolution leading the game into a new direction. Yeah, this is pretty spot on too. If you like Dragonflight, it's more the same. If you dislike Dragonflight, well, it's more the same. It's basically a content patch with 4 new areas. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty pessimistic way of saying it, but I would say this is pretty spot on still.
More people are coming around to what they're trying to do here. However, I do want to address our last video because I was very, very positive, in which case people were like, oh, you're shilling for Blizzard. Absolutely not. My relationship with Blizzard, I want to make a little statement on this. My relationship with Blizzard is now one of like a mutual kind of respect friendship. It's really nice, actually. We argue, we talk, we do things, and often it's a case of like just back and forth and not a case of, hey, sell our products. In fact, they've never really done that with me at all. It's like they've invited me to events and stuff, but never really like do this, you know, can you say this is really good? I've never ever had that with Blizzard. All I've done, and the wonderful conversations I've had with Ian, have been based on the fact that you're always kind of fair and honest. And if it's good, I'm going to say it's good. And when it's bad, I'm going to say it's bad. That's like the nature of it. As much as it upsets some people on the internet, it's like you either fully support it or you don't. Like, that's nonsense. And here we have with some conflicting views, despite my enjoyment of the War Within. But I do want to be, again, clear on something else. I am not all in on WoW. I'm never doing that again. I have way more fun and interest and engagement with my audience now doing variety stuff than I did with all of World of Warcraft. I do partially miss it. It was so easy to know what to wake up and make content on and what my thoughts were going to be, looking at every patch note and doing all that kind of stuff. But the likelihood is I'm going to the Race to World first. I'll be leaving on Sunday for that. Hopefully we will see Echo grab that title again. I will be casting for Echo this time, so of course I want to be there for the big victory. That is a big joy of mine. And on the other side, once I've done Heroic, which are my personal goals, I'm no time in my real life with my children and my family to jump into Mythic Raiding again, is that I will leave World of Warcraft until the next major content patch, which looks to be the anniversary event, which looks fantastic. Come back, check that out, and then move on to other things, especially like Path of Exile 2's coming out. There's all games on the forefront that I just cannot.
He has like a really realistic approach. Like, I'm gonna play the game. It's good. I'm having fun. I'm going to clear the raid on Heroic and then quit until the next patch, because that's what I want to do, and those are my goals. To be completely honest, I'm probably in a very, very similar boat as Preach here. I'm liking the expansion a lot, more than I thought I would. But like, I have goals I want to achieve, and once I hit those goals, it'll probably be like more variety stuff for me too. And part of the variety is other versions of WoW, like SOD, maybe Firelands, Hardcore, and then other variety games. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of like the way gaming is trended. Like the way it used to be is you just play WoW only, always, forever, 20 hours a day or whatever. And now it's like, okay, the game can be really good and we can play the heck out of it, but there's still other stuff out there now, right?
Wait to play. So take that for what you will. I just want to make sure we're all clear and on the same grounds. All right, let's start with the pros and cons. We're going to do a bit of both all the way through. Let's start with combat. So for me, and combat and content, let's say that. For me, the early access is just overall just really, really bad. That I'm seeing very little benefit. Like if I was to try and squidge a bit of benefit out of it, it did divide the players enough that both launches were pretty smooth. WoW expansion launches for general haven't been that bad for a long time since WoD, which was really awful. Like usually there's a few hours which are terrible, and then it kind of resolves itself within a day or so after the Zerg has gone in. I still think a far better option is to do what a lot of other games do, is if you pre-order, you get early access, and that counts for everybody instead of some sort of premium going on top. That still will divide the player base. There are always going to be those people who are going to wait to see if it's any good, then they're going to join later, or they're going to pick it up closer to the time, whatever it might be. And those who are like, I'm definitely going to play this, I'm going to pre-order it, and divide the player base that way. And therefore, we don't have this nonsense that we had with early access, people feeling like they're behind. I got sent so many threads of people saying, well, oh, we're just behind for all of Season 1, which is nonsense if you've played it.
I mean, no, it's not true. Like, if you played the game 3 days later than everyone else, like, it didn't matter at all, since it was a month ago now until actual content is out, which is today with Mythic Plus. A month ago. So, like, no, it didn't matter at all. But I still agree with Preach. They shouldn't have done it, right?
And then, but the feeling is there. And then, of course, we had the scaling nerfs come in, which made people feel, rightfully, that early access, if they wanted to turbo Zerg alts, just had a way easier time. Which they did. That is the nature of the beast. However, on that side of things, coming back to the combat, I, for one, didn't really care about this. I have always known that World of Warcraft's open world content is designed for anybody who's ever picked up a mouse. That's it. Objectively, World of Warcraft is one of the easiest games to play, the most forgiving that's out there in the MMO world. Like, it's objectively true that Final Fantasy XIV is way harder. Way harder. Anybody who's done some of the trials that you do, even the solo stuff while doing the recent Dawn Trail campaign, some of them are really tough. In particular, fighting Daddy, without spoilers, has massive amounts of mechanics, which is very easy to fail and mess around. And their dungeons are not as easy as they are in World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft has been known for a long time as one of the simplest games out there. In fact, we actually saw that recently with the event in the Ringing Deeps, nerfed, despite the fact if you're a relatively seasoned or decent player, it was ridiculously easy for the beginning, but it got nerfed again. An interesting approach by Blizzard, which I kind of want to do a video on, is trying to bring back the Proving Grounds for Mr. Pandaria, which so many people failed.
I think this Awakening the Machine quest could be a really fun thing if they actually made it somewhat challenging. But it's just, you just hop in there and you're just yawning for 15 minutes until it's over, and then you collect your weekly loot, and then you do it again next week, you know?
That they had to get rid of that system because you couldn't do heroics unless you passed, and people just could not do it. And they've had to nerf that event because it was too much. And they're once again trying desperately to get people to understand their game mechanics. Blocking things, interrupting, stuns, moving away from explosions, all those things are present in there. And if you can do that stuff, it's like, this is really stupidly easy. And if you don't, you die. So they've nerfed that to go along with it. So personally, I didn't really mind that we got the catch-up gear before the War Within launched and breezed through all the leveling content, because I do not expect it to be a challenge. My criticism of it is, when they get to an end zone boss or an end zone payoff, they should absolutely scenario that stuff, because it is so anticlimactic. Is that you rock up, you finally get to play your cooldowns, because none of the normal world mobs need cooldowns, and you just eradicate it, and it's like, this was the big threat. It pulls you out of everything, especially if you're enjoying the story. It's like, this is just not a threat to anybody. This thing's a child. This is ridiculous. That thing should be scenarioed, and difficulty should be applied to that, or some sort of encounter would go along well with that, even though it's like one-time use. But considering how many alts are in play these days, it's probably not one-time use. I think it'd be well worth it to add more world stuff. Counter to that, though, this is one of the things that a member of my team actually hated so much. that it took them out of the game entirely and made them annoying. The words were, I couldn't even finish channeling a disintegrate on any mob before they were just dead. And their point was, I never even got to play my character really. I might as well have been playing some generic default character that has an attack button because nothing in the game is allowing me to play my character.
I mean, I've felt the same way with normal. So the entire leveling experience, you can't do your rotation because mobs don't have enough life. They just die. It's like, okay, well, you know, leveling's supposed to be fast and easy, so that's fine. You know, I kind of write that off. And then like in the normal raid, normal dungeons, everything dies so fast you can't do your rotation either. It's like, okay, what about heroics? So in heroics, everything dies so fast you can't really do your rotation either. And then in mythic zeros, it's kind of the same too. And you know, I'm talking more of if you're a higher end player, right? So for me, I just kind of realized if you want a challenge, then you want to do like the mythic raid or mythic high-end mythic plus, period. I'm just not going to expect a challenge on any of the other content when it comes down to being able to press your rotation before the content dies. So I think it is in line with my expectations, and my expectations were always that like, yeah, leveling in retail's easy. Yeah, normal dungeons easy. That's just how, like, you know, yeah. So that's what I expected, so I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah,
but
man,
if the
we
person,
did it 3 months.
Yeah, thanks for the sub, man. If the person on Preach's team is like expecting this leveling challenge, you're gonna be let down, right? Like, yeah, that's just not what it is, and that's fine, right?
And certainly if you care about like doing a decent rotation, using your cooldowns, being effective and powerful, and taking any advantage you can, none of that is present in the open world content, and it hasn't been for a long time, coming back from the early access. So looking for the pros of the early access, the dividing of the player base, the downsides: one, a disgruntled player base who couldn't afford or didn't want to pay the extra premium, rightfully so, for an early access.
That's fine, yeah.
And those who have now been playing the War Within for coming up to a month without any character progression of relevance. It's a really long time to be stuck without content, right? Next week we are going to be getting that content finally, and it'll be 3 weeks total. It's a really, really long time to be stuck with like just a bit of renown, especially if you're not doing alts. I'm not doing alts. I'm doing a single character, and I am done. I'm not grinding world quests all day, every day. That's not happening. I'll play other things. I'm not doing that. So I was kind of done. And like, okay, I've got some world weekly reset stuff happening on the Wednesday. I did that, and that was it. I'm playing.
So I'm in the same boat as Preach. Like, I'm doing one character, and it's been a month of absolutely nothing. The good news is that changes today, bro. We have M+, we have the Mythic, right? We have the full game. The full game ships today. It's September 17th, 2024. The game ships today in my eyes. Like, today, it's War Within launch day in that sense, right? We actually get Race to World first. We get Mythic Pluses. You can actually play the entire game with no other content being gatekept. The game comes out today. The fact that we had to wait a month, it frustrates me. I'm going to be honest. I said this months ago when I saw the plan, Blizzard's, release the dates of everything coming out, and I'm just like, what are we going to do? Anyway, yeah, the past month has been really slow. There's been... You kind of just ran around looking for things to do. But now, yeah, we have content now. Nothing to complain about now. It's great.
The things, I played Space Marine 2. We're going to be playing Crusader Kings 3. Then we're going to come back when the raid is doing, right? It's just, this is a really long time to be starved of content. The feedback we had on that from some people was like, oh, FF14 does the same thing, right? It delays its raids and its savage raids. It does. The difference is, for Final Fantasy XIV's large content is far, 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 far more robust than World of Warcraft's. You have difficulty. They launch with their extremes. You can also farm them. So if you've never done FF14, think of it like a single boss heroic. So if you play classic, it'd be like Onyxia heroic. You could do that from day one. It's also repeatable instantaneously. It's not on a lockout. So for example, I did 56 or 57 attempts or kills on one of the bosses over the course of 2 days because I was farming some wing transmog as a mount. Yeah! You!
Gaming moments like these are the best.
Victory! You cursed little bastards! Keep bringing it home! Get in! Get the f*** in! All it took was sacrificing my fucking soul to the Lalafels.
Nice. Grass,
And
bro.
I just invested my time into that. And it's hard. We wiped plenty of times while doing it. And it's something you had to pay attention to. A lot of deaths. It was challenging content, which is not present in World of Warcraft. Similarly, all their world rares, all those things all exist from day one, along with all the necessary other things you would have in there. There's some challenge to invest your character into in preparation. You can get your pre-raid weapons. All that kind of stuff is doable from day one, on top of a 45-hour plus main story campaign. Mixed reviews, I know. I've already done a video on it. But less than like the 8 hours at best that you're going to get out of the World of Warcraft one, right? So there's a lot more robust content to tide you over until the raids and things release. So it's not the same. It's not the same. So World of Warcraft, I think, going forward should really reevaluate if this early access crap is going to stick around, and it is going to be some paid premium. Is you're almost telling people it's a kind of a waste of time unless you're a hardcore min-maxer or you really suffer from FOMO and fear of missing out. Because you end up with a really long time with not much to do. Unless you want to level alts and stuff. And I am seeing a lot more people buy into the fact that like, I'm kind of bored now. There's nothing for me to do. So I'm just not going to play the game. That's not the feeling you want in an MMO. Like, you don't want that to happen. So that's something they could work on. And also the in-game combat needs some level of difficulty somewhere. Some challenge. Even if it's optional. I do like games that like provide you a challenge and then say, do you want to turn this down?
Well, like, here's the thing. There's in-game difficulty now. Now that you can do delves all the way to 11, that's hard. Zekfir question mark, that's hard. Obviously, the heroic raid out last week, that's hard. The mythic raid out today, that's hard, clearly. And then mythic plus out today. You just have to wait for the hard content. There was a month of no hard content, and I think that's why people are upset, right?
Yeah, that's fine. If I'm finding this too hard, yeah, I don't mind turning it down. I know some people get like aggrieved at that idea, but it's fine to turn it down just to create a bit more of a substantial player experience. I think that would be fine as well. So I do understand where they're coming from in the combat. Let's move to the narrative things. One of the great joys I've seen over the last 7 days, pretty much, is more people, now they've leveled their main character, they've kind of done their gearing, they've been buggering about with the profession crafting orders, enchanted stuff, all that kind of stuff, and are now leveling more alts. It's taking a bit of time to drink in the story, and are like, okay, this is different. Now, internally, again, here with the team, the feedback we had from the person who's left the game is like, I don't see what you're seeing. I don't see it. So we sat down and had quite a long conversation about it, which may be worthy of a video for the TDP channel, something like that, where we talked about this. I said, what is your opinion? And they were, because they said, I don't see what you're seeing, and your last video was a bit overly positive for me, and it didn't feel accurate because I don't get what you're seeing there. And it was regarding like, I don't really care about these characters. I'm not particularly interested. I'm not seeing the subtleties. It's just the same old with more cutscenes was generally the feedback. Is like, it's just like the same old stuff with cutscenes. The villain's okay, but it's kind of just another villain, which I don't feel at all, right? We have this contrasting view. Now, what I'm about to talk about is like, there isn't a right way or a wrong way to do this, because World of Warcraft has taught us for 20 years pretty much to ignore its story. And I am as guilty as what we're about to talk about here than anyone else.
I wonder what percentage of the player base over time, not just this expansion or not just like, you know, TBC or Wrath, but like throughout BFA, Shadowlands.
I do not know, for instance.
Whoops, I hit my spacebar. All of these different expansions, WoD, right? Actually like knew what was going on in the story. Like what percentage of the player base, if you just went up and asked them, what's going on? Who's the final boss? How did they get there? What do they want? Right? Where are they from? What percentage of the player base would be able to just like confidently tell you without Googling or looking it up? 2%? 3%? 15? 10? I don't know. Do a poll? How do I say this? Like, what percent of player base knows story? Not this current story, but like if you just went in any expansion and just ask them what's going on in WoW, right? I don't know. 1 to 5%, 6 to 10%. Wait, yeah, 6 to 10. That's fine. 11 to 15, I guess, and then like 16 to 20, and then like 21 to 25. I don't think it would, like anyone would say more than 25, probably, I'm guessing. I think that would probably be like, is this, yeah. You could, I could do 21% plus instead of that. That's fine. Okay, we'll start the poll. Just generally speaking. We either have people voting 21 plus or 1 to 5. Nice. We have this extreme and this extreme. Oh, okay. That's starting to even out. I don't know. Anyway, my point is, it's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I've been in that boat for a very, 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 very long time. I'm finally getting into the other side of things, but I've pretty much been in that boat for the last 20 years. So I guess I agree with him here.
It came up recently and people got really annoyed. I don't know what happened in Legion. Story-wise, I really have no idea. I'm not saying that for content. I'm not saying that to gain a reaction. It's just that it was not on my points of interest for the game when Legion was out. What I cared about in Legion was gaining my legendaries in the most efficient way possible. How much AP can I get? What is the most efficient route to that? How do I prepare for raids? I'm now in the raids. Okay, I need to do this, this, and this in LFR, and I need to do all this to get my...
We were just talking about this like an hour ago. I'm the same. Like, in Legion, I have no clue what happened. No idea. Shadowlands, no idea. Like, no clue. Like, you could ask me who's the final boss in Legion, I could not tell you, right? Like, I could say that for TBC or Wrath or obviously current expansion, but like, for so long there, it's just a massive blur of like, I couldn't tell you. No clue, right? Snuts? Yeah, exactly.
My weekly caches. I need to do all... That was my 100% focus of the game. What was happening story-wise, I couldn't care less. And I can expand on that. I have no idea how Varian Rin died. I don't know. I seem to recall when we went through this with my stream chat, is like, didn't he fall off the boat or something? Something along that. And people were just face palming, like, is he trolling? I'm not trolling. I genuinely just didn't care. And I also had an add-on that if a cutscene played, it automatically like asked me to skip it and move on, because they would typically play it after we killed a boss, and I want to check the loot and see what we got.
Yeah,
and celebrate with the guys rather than tell everybody to be quiet so I can watch a cutscene. That was just how I played the game. And I'm not the only one, as I well know. So I told you guys in the last video, is like I came in with a different approach because the Magni cutscene in the pre-event made me reevaluate things. Now, here is how I see it. You could disagree or agree. I don't mind. But this is what I'm doing and how this has allowed me to enjoy WoW a lot more. Is that I decided that I am mentally going to forget everything that's happened to every character in World of Warcraft ever, pretty much. Because I look at this similar to coming back to 14, which is known for its story, of the transition from A Realm Reborn, which is not particularly well loved story-wise for a game that everyone bangs on about the story, A Realm Reborn, which is the first launch, you know, it was the remake of the game, but it's the first story.
Just for the record, I've never played FF, like any of them in my life, so like a lot of the FF references are just like right over my head, just so we're on the same page here.
You'll encounter is long, it's drawn out, it's got a lot of filler, even though it's already been trimmed once. It's not well received. Why is that? They never thought they were getting an expansion. They're quite open about this. Like, there was a huge investment into A Realm Reborn to try and save what was already a floundering game. And then they would kind of like, we would like to make an expansion, but we have no idea. So a lot of the story threads and narrative in A Realm Reborn didn't really have an end point or somewhere that they might need to be in 6 years' time. Right? Then they did very well. It, like, saved the game, and then expansion was coming. And that's...
Bro, I just thought of something. I think games felt inherently different when we were kids because we had imaginations. Like, you would log in and see someone and be like, hey, what's that over there? It's a monster. Let's see if we can kill it. Wow, we did it. Like, oh, that was hard. Let's get someone else. You know, like, we had straight up imaginations. Now we're all like in our 30s or whatever, and we aren't as imaginative. So we log in and we're like, give me the loot, skip this cutscene. Yeah, I already killed that. oh, that's too easy. I one shot it. Oh, that's too hard. I'm not gonna kill it. You know, like it's like actually kind of what's going on. Yeah, yeah. Like we just had more imagination when I was 12 years old. Like any little thing was fun, dude. Log in. Wow, I killed 10 boars. Like.
When they started taking it seriously, and you see these writers come in for Heaven's Ward. I'm sure even if you've never played it, you've heard or seen the meme about Heaven's Ward, is that it is a fantastically well-told story that is for a very mature audience with lots of subtleties and foreshadowing and really well constructed and really well paced. All those things. And it changed the direction forevermore for that game, and they went on to do really good things. I see that happening here. Now, of course, Dragonflight and Shadowlands and BFA are not the launch of the game like A Realm Reborn was. However, it was kind of under different team. We know they've replaced a lot of the writing team. It also had some atrocious, and again, I don't like crapping on people's work, but I'm going to be fair and honest, some atrocious writing that led partly to my disgust with the Shadowlands expansion in particular. It was nonsensical in so many places that I just could not enjoy this video game anymore. Along with its, obviously, systems and problems there. And I see, and my approach here is like, okay, I'm going to let this new team, this new direction, the return of Metzen, all these kind of things, I'm going to let them try. I'm going to let them try, because I'll always have a bias for World of Warcraft, of course. It set me off on my journey to be here in front of you today. So I'm going to let them try. But it is the last time that I'm going to let them try this. Not the last time I'm ever going to play WoW, but the last time I'm going to try and invest myself into the story, because I've always disliked the World of Warcraft story, but I'm going to give it a try. So I'm going to forget that Magni has harassed me about claiming Azerite and Champion and wounds popping up on my screen every 2 minutes. I'm going to forget that Khadgar keeps showing up, then disappearing, and Jaina does the same thing. They just keep appearing and disappearing. All these people we should absolutely be calling at all times when things hit the fan. That's what I'm going to be focused on. I'm going to forget all those things. The only things I need to know about, and I need to simplify it for my brain to accept where we're going, is that Anduin was very much abused in the Shadowlands, and he's suffering because of that. And that's kind of it. That's the only thing that's super, super relevant coming into the War Within, because the rest of them, they very quickly, and this looks very intentional to me, if they're going to be important going forward, they give you a revamp of who they are in a very quick way for the important notes. So this will be the Illyria questline where Xalateth is giving her illusions, but it reminds you of Illyria's past. Her children, her marriage to Turellian, and the touching of the void and how that affected her and what it did, along with some beautifully done video vignettes that go along with it. Everybody else, they've changed quickly to try and erase their past almost. To not erase, but reset their characters. So we just had it with Khadgar. Full reset on Khadgar now. Even visually, Khadgar has now changed into somebody else. Magni, again, they've done the same thing. They have completely changed Magni, not only in the story, but visually to reset him to a new spot.
So I'll just pause there again for a second. I've done something similar to Preach, and I think I did a Preach react like I think like a month ago, and I already said this, but I'll repeat myself. I've done that same thing where I'm like, all right, I have my problems with WoW in this expansion. If I'm gonna enjoy it at all, I'm gonna have to just forget about those and move on, right? Because if in my head, if I'm mentally thinking about all the things wrong, then you just see the things wrong, and it's just hard to enjoy yourself. So I've done something very similar where I'm like, I'm just not going to go there. I'm just going to look at it from a new lens and a new perspective if I'm going to have any fun, right? So I've had to like really retrain my brain. One of the things that I know for me to kind of stay away from is PvP, right? Like if I PvP, I instantly, I'm just like, yeah. Whoa. Okay. But if I'm more invested in the lore and the characters and the PvE side of things, I'm like, oh wow, this is a whole nother side of this game that's actually pretty sweet, right? So I've had to do that same thing, man. It's like just gotta leave the past in the past and move on, and it's not easy to do. When you do it, it's like, okay, yeah, I can see this. This actually makes sense. You know, cool. All right.
They're changing them and getting rid of them, and we're going to see that with Anduin soon. If you played the main story up until now, you will know that Anduin is probably going to be back soonish, so we can forget everything that happened to him in the past. It just took a little longer because he was supposed to be suffering from all these things. And other than that, they're kind of resetting these characters so they can pave a road forward. That's how I looked at it. So when I was asking my teammate about this, it was like, I didn't get that at all. And I was like, what did you think of the Illyria cutscene that I just mentioned to you then? Couldn't remember it. I was like, you don't remember it? He's like, no, not really. And I was like trying to describe, it's like, you're in a room, there's all these memories, Zalatas there, there's some mobs spawning, and she's making you do all these things. I don't remember it. I was like, this really stood out to me, who came in, like, taking in the story. And I played him the clip. I found the clip of it. It's like, this room is like, oh. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. By then, I was in World of Warcraft mode, new expansion launch. I see mob, I kill, mob, kill, mob, kill, move on to next thing. Now, that's not wrong by any means, because that's how we've been taught, and I have played World of Warcraft in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And so that's the aspect you got. So not taking in maybe as much as I did to spot the subtleties and the fact that all this information is there. But his other point was very, very good that I fully agree with, is that World of Warcraft still suffers from this problem that I want them to address going forward. This is like threefold. One, stop time gating the story. The actual finale point for him as to why he's decided to give up on the War Within is this time gating of story on this weekly thing is awful. And I'm sure it's an antiquated remnant of keeping people subscribed. There's some more next week. There's a bit more next week. We drip feed it to you. It pulls you out of it completely. He said, we got to a point where Thrall and Jaina arrived. It was the most exciting thing for me in the story that had happened so far. And then the story just came to a dead stop. And that was out. I was like, I'm done with this. And for your Dawn Trail players, it would be like me.
Do you guys agree with that or disagree with that? Like, would you rather have the story out on day one where you just do the whole thing and then you're done day one? Or would you guys rather have it dripped week by week how we had it? I haven't really given it much thought, to be honest. Looks like it's maybe about 50-50 just from a quick eye glance at the chat. The week by week thing, like from my perspective, is I was playing, I did my story, it took an hour or two, and then after that I'm like, okay, cool, now I can check out Delves or the world or whatever, and then I was doing some other stuff, and then Tuesday came around and I'm like, oh sweet, I have more, I can get a little bit further in the story. So it got me kind of like somewhat excited to see what happened next. And then I took an hour or two or whatever, like maybe a little bit less, and then the same thing kind of happened, and that next Tuesday rolled around and I'm like, oh sweet, we have another story. So like it kind of got me excited over and over, whereas if I just completed it in one day, it just kind of would be out. So I feel like I don't mind it the way it was. Like I said, I haven't thought about it that much, but to me, I guess that wasn't a breaking, it's not even something I thought about, so that'll say something, right? It's not even something that like came up to my mind at all.
Otto, and then the story just comes to a stop for another week. It would be unacceptable. Like, that's just not okay. Can't be done. And I fully agree with this. This time gating needs to go away. The second thing I agree with him on, you're still not a part of the narrative. And the way he put it is like, the conversations just don't feel natural like normal people. Now, we're not talking about the pacing and the word speed here, which a lot of people do have a problem with. I don't, neither does he. It's more a case of you're a fly on the wall to what's happening, and it's just not how conversations like this would go along. And a big strength of 14 in its storytelling is you are very much involved in the events that are happening in the story and have input. You have choices to make. You have decisions to make. They probably don't affect too much of the overall story, but you do have input as a character who is important here. World of Warcraft in particular has this problem of it points information at you instead of you being involved in information. There's no bigger evidence of this than when you receive a quest. Usually it's 2-3 paragraphs of information, which is just waterfalled onto you, and you don't have any say, input, feedback whatsoever. You're just told by somebody, blah, 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 go. And you're like, okay, which leads to the idea of click accept, go. Click accept, go, because that's what's happening. You are not a part of it.
I'm gonna be honest, I never really gave this much thought either. I think there's actually like a fair point to be made there, though. It's not like you get asked a question and then you're like, how should I respond, or how should I develop my character or the story in certain ways. It's more just like, I'm gonna watch this and then kind of keep doing my quest. So maybe there's a point to be made there. Once again, it's not something that I've ever really considered or thought about.
I then asked about the stay a while and listens, where Blizzard has done a really good job in setting the scene, the motions, and in fact, adding in, for the first time ever, I think, really actively, extra dialogue that you have to go out and find for things that you probably are interested in. And in particular, without spoilers, if you go down to the Weaver's lair and you...
Sorry, just to pause. A game that I thought of is like Fallout 4. Or any of the Fallouts, Fallout 3, whatever, New Vegas. When you're in the game and you go and talk to an NPC, once again, it's like a single player game, so it's not necessarily a fair comparison to make, but you know, you talk to the NPC, there's a bunch of different options on how you can reply. And they'll send you on completely different quest chains depending on how you reply. Or you could just like kill the NPC and then don't do the quest chain at all and take their loot or whatever. And you could also do that. So you have like an infinite amount of ways to interact with the world. So you're clearly like that main character, right? Just to contrast a little bit here, right? Destiny does that. I've never played Destiny. Baldur's Gate 3, obviously another very good example, right? You can kind of move through and experience the world how you want to experience it because you have these options and you can really, you feel like you're that main character, right? Anyway, I don't know if it's a fair comparison because WoW is a different genre of game altogether. But I think that he has a point to be made, I think.
You finish the current MSQ, go inside the inn, there's a very interesting scene that plays out involving the Weaver, but you're never pointed to it, you never told it, and it's going to be relevant going forward if you're interested in the story. But his point was the same again. Instead of what, say, 14 would do, and it is the better storyteller, that's why we're comparing it to it, is where you go for dinner with one of the characters, or perhaps a walk along the beach, or you meet, or you have some sort of one-on-one interaction with that character. They'll either come and visit you or do something. And you have this sort of bonding time that's just you two to grow that personal relationship. In 14, the Stale Wine Listens is you are a fly on the wall to somebody else's situation. You are literally just like staring from the other side of the room while they have this really personal moment. And it doesn't involve you in any way. They'll just play it out. They'll talk. Sometimes they're supposed to be talking to you like Farron does or the General does, but you don't do anything. You're just along for the ride and then you're out of there. You're still a fly on the wall rather than your character being involved. If you're setting battle plans, you should be involved in that conversation in some way and taking opinions from other people. That's something they really need to work on, I think, is actually making you feel a part of it, along with the time gating of story. But I am happy to say that overall, I'm seeing more people enjoy the story. I'm very enjoying it to the point where we are theorizing things in the office. We've got a video coming up on that. I'm very happy with The War Within so far. I'm very, very happy with it. I think it's deserving. I'm happy to see that it's doing well. The question that's come up, though, is when do you think this might spread? And this was asked to me by the person left. When do you think this might spread in terms of other people being into it? Probably next expansion. If Blizzard is consistent. I want to be fundamentally clear on something. If they burn me on this, right now I'm invested, and I'm enjoying it, and I've been looking for holes, guys. Oh my god, I am looking for them everywhere. I am still full cynicism on this thing. That they're going to screw it up at some point. They haven't done it yet, and I've been looking. And they've been working on ways of closing logical fallacies that happen all the time in the WoW stories. So far, I haven't found one. And in fact, they've turned up the maturity level, which we'll have for you in another video about the quest that you should check out. Because, of course, it's an MMO. Not every quest is a narrative masterpiece. It's an MMO, dudes. That's not going to happen. I think when we say the story's really good, everyone thinks every quest is good. It's not what's happening. So, we'll have that for you coming up. There's this opportunity now to keep the word of mouth flowing. It's like, actually, this is really good, and it's worth going back and checking. And it's been nice to see, even on MMO Champion, I've been browsing the subreddits and over on Wowhead and stuff, there's more people like, actually, I'm changing my mind about this. I'm now giving it a chance to breathe. And that's what's good to see, because so far it is earned. Right now it is earned. But will it stay that way?
We'll see.
An interesting look at what this launch has been. And every single criticism and pro seems legitimate from my eyes. Here's the clarity of the point. I am taking the World Soul Saga as a fresh start. New writers trying to mend some of the problems of the past, but for the most part, letting them go. But I do want to be absolutely eye-to-eye clear with you. If they burn me, if it happens again, there will be no second chances.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to like forgive someone for something that they did. Like it's a hard thing to do to forgiveness in general, right? It's like, but you can maybe find it in your heart to do it, and you move on and you forgive someone for doing something bad to you. And if they do it again, it's like, I'm out of here, man. get gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they do it again after the forgiveness part, it's like uber done. So I'm pretty with Preach on that too. It's like, man, like you could forgive WoW, kind of come back and just be like, all right, let's start fresh. This is fun. But yeah, if you get burned again after that, it's like, you know,
we're not going in and giving this all fresh again and let's restart this choo-choo. That's not going to happen. So maybe in the future there will be that, ooh, this is all bad and rubbish video. Or maybe by the time midnight rolls around, more people will give this story a little bit of a chance based on how it's gone so far.
I mean, that'd be cool if even more people were playing in midnight than now. I mean, hey, that'd be great. That would be great. Xaryu doesn't know about the whole Titan Dreadlord retcon stuff. Yeah, I don't. That's correct. You could fill me in, or maybe I could watch a vid or something, but I think server should be up soon.